When was the last time you took a leap of faith, trusting that everything is going to work out? Do you crave growth, or are you merely content with the status quo? If you want more out of your life, out of your career, and out of your relationships, you are in the right place. Take the leap and discover how to create a life by design rather than living it by default. Real success starts with you. Now here's your host, Colleen Biggs.
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Take the Leap. I am your host, Colleen Biggs, and guess what today is? Today is our 100th episode of Take the Leap. I can't even believe we've hit 100 episodes. This is an exciting day for me. I feel like there needs to be confetti and audiences out there like, clapping and cheering and just, balloons everywhere. You don't see any of that today, but that's how I'm picturing this 100th episode is going to be. And it will be that way when we finally release it, I promise. And Chava Florin is here with us today. I'm really excited to interview her because being emotionally resilient during this turbulent time that we're in, I think is very important. And we're going to dive into that with her today. So you stick around because it's going to be absolutely fantastic. But before I do, I want to thank one of our amazing sponsors that have been with us for a long time, Phoenix Drone Pros. At Phoenix Drone Pros, we love what we do and are passionate about each and every drone photography and video shoot. We've been in business since 2017, and our talents and skills shows in the video production we deliver. We offer fast service for commercial real estate, movies, events, and construction site monitoring. We also provide drone virtual tours that are all the rage right now. These virtual tours are great for team building and entertainment. Contact us today at phoenixdronepros.com to schedule your shoot online or to get more information. We capture everything. Thank you, Phoenix Drone Pros, for being such an amazing sponsor of the Take the Leap podcast. All right, let's get to Chava. She is a writer, a host of the Nurture Series podcast, and co-creator of The Search web series, an award-winning filmmaker and documentarian, and an expansive thought leader. Her book, Everything is Gonna Be Okay, a #1 new release on Amazon. And she is the first person self-help narrative on ways that we can nurture ourselves during a crisis and expand our thinking. Chava, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Colleen. 100, number 100. This feels big. This feels huge. Thank you for letting me be 100. I feel special. Thank you. This is awesome.
So big. I love to see individuals celebrate mile markers and, exciting, pivotal times in their businesses. And this is a day we get to celebrate 100 episodes of bringing on amazing guests like you, Chava, where you get to share your knowledge, and we have a different subject every single episode. So every single individual that is a listener of this show can take what you have to offer and apply it to their business, their personal life, their growth, their personal development. And that having all of this learning and growth really helps us become better leaders. In the end, right? We become a better version of ourselves. So, Chava, what have you found over the years of being, helping individuals become emotionally resilient during turbulent times? Did that start in turbulent times, or did it start before and then you just really refined it during times like we're in today?
Well, I think like the very first time that I ever had anything really turbulent happen, I was probably 2 years old, and I was sitting in my grandparents'. I talk about this in the book. I was sitting in my grandparents' house. And I remember this so clearly. My great grandmother was laying on the sofa wearing like Coke thick bottle, glasses. And my brother and I were playing on the floor. My brother was only 6 months old. Grandma gets up, can't see, trips over, I think, me at the time, only to learn later it was actually my brother. So we'll blame him. But for years, I blame myself. And she fell and literally hit her head on the fireplace. She was in a coma for like 10 days. She died 2 weeks later. And it was really traumatizing. And as a 2-year-old, that was sort of like, welcome to the world, like you're now about to enter a turbulent way of living. Like that's just the way, I think life is turbulent. We imagine that life is like this perfect, beautiful, constant, same kind of thing, that nothing bad happens or nothing difficult happens or nothing challenging happens. But what we're recognizing more and more, and the thing that's stringing everybody together, especially since COVID, is that everyone goes through stuff and everyone goes through difficult things. It's not like all of a sudden like, oh, this is so hard. How did this happen? No, it's like, if you're lucky where you hit, maybe 35 or 40 and no big crisis happened to you, you're just incredibly blessed. But I don't know people that's the case. Everybody that I know have had really big events happen in their life that are really difficult that they have to overcome.
1,000%. So
yeah.
I got to go back to that story. You thought it was you because you were so young. You just couldn't remember, right? And no one else was in the room but your brother.
But me and my brother, nobody else was in the room. And I just had this assumption like, wow, at 2 years old, you're so little and you don't really, when you see like something like that happen, you just at least for me, I just immediately assume like, oh my God, I killed the blue bubby. Like that was my thought process. God must hate me. So he's going to strike me down with something bad. And so my entire sort of like framing from a very young age was almost this framing of like, God's this bad thing in the sky, this alien that's just going to like strike me whenever he has a chance. For some reason, that was like this small child in me, that small narrative just kept perpetuating. And the thing about small narratives that happen when you're a child is that you become an adult, but your small child still kind of lives inside of you. One of the interviews I did on my podcast was a woman named Margaret Paul, and she wrote a book called Inner Bonding. And it's all about like kind of getting really comfortable with your inner child. And the idea being that your inner child dialogue, in other words, what you think of yourself, what you think of your higher power, that never really shifts. That always stays the same. But then you as the adult, you shift. And at some point you go, wait a second, something's not working here. That small voice clearly needs to have a reframe, or at least I need to have a reframe and maybe not listen to it or not let it lead. And a lot of times we let that smaller voice or that child voice lead, or that child narrative lead. I read this really beautiful book. It was written by David Aaron, who wrote Endless Light. And he talked about the different ways that we as children think about our higher power. I believe in God. I know you're a God-fearing woman. And I think that when you're small, you think of your higher power in a certain visual. Like, what was your visual calling when you were little? What did you think of your higher power as? What did he look like, or she?
When I grew up, from the time I was born into an LDS family. So from the time that I ever remember, I was going to classes and my parents had pictures of Jesus up on the wall. So when I thought of my higher power, it was the photo of Jesus that I would see on like every wall, I swear, in our house. We had little pictures of them even in our bedroom. So it was a physical man, and that was the form of Jesus with long hair. That was what I saw. So that's what I've always pictured.
And then when you had this visual of this man, what was the sort of personality that you attached to it? Was it kind? Was it judgment? Yeah. What was it? Yeah. What was that?
I was raised in a family and in a religion at that time where God and Jesus were the kindest, most gentle, sweetest, caring, especially for children, in helping them. If you felt scared or at any point, you would be comforted by praying. That was how I felt, comforted by that individual. That was, and I've heard that's how I felt. but I have heard that many other people fear Jesus or fear God. I never in my life ever felt fear for 1 second, ever.
So you're incredibly lucky, because a lot of people, they're small, as children, you have this idea that your higher power is maybe frightening or full of judgment or going to cast something awful on you, right? And so for me, it was just this big booming thing in the sky that was going to get me. Like that was what, it wasn't a message that anyone gave me. It was just something I conjured up as a child. So now I had to shift my thinking as an adult. And so what David Aaron talks about in this book is that when you're a child, you have this vision of what you think your higher power is, but then you're an adult and you still have that vision. Mm-hmm. So the key is, when you are going through something difficult and you do have to lean on faith, is to think about your higher power in a different context, that you write the narrative, that you choose what that narrative is, instead of leaning into the child, thought thinking process. So now for me, God is like George Burns. He's upstairs, he's telling jokes, and I really like that.
He is, I just remember as a child when I was scared about thunder and lightning and those types of things. I remember my parents when I was really little telling me, oh, well, he does bowling too. He loves to have fun just like you. And every time he would bowl, that would be the thunder. And if there was like a strike, if he got a strike, it would be the lightning. And it was kind of, as a child, like a fun way, because then I didn't become scared of the thunder or the lightning. I didn't feel like
that's cool.
I was going to get struck down, because it just, to me, felt like, oh, God must be bowling again. And, even though that was a complete lie, and I never think we should lie to our kids, but again, they just kind of put it in a context. But then again, I was taught about Santa Claus. I'm just going to leave it at that, because I don't know who's listening. So,
well, it's funny that so basically your family gamified your faith, which is that's fantastic.
Yeah, they gamified my faith. And honestly, I have to tell you, Chava, like for me, I'm very thankful that my parents raised me in the way that they did when I was really young, in faith, in believing in the way that I see God, the way that I feel the Holy Ghost, the way that I see Jesus, and feel the Spirit. I have never feared once, ever, because I feel that there is no judgment. And so I take how I see God doesn't have judgment. If we go back and read everything in the Bible of when Jesus was on earth and everything he taught and how he prayed with people and healed and everything that he did, I really felt like there was no judgment. And so I take that and bring that to heaven on earth today, and I don't judge others.
I think that you said something so dynamic, which is that the way that we see our higher power is the way we operate in this world.
Yeah.
So if we see a judging God, like a harsh judgment with lots of harsh judgment, or if we see a God that is not compassionate, then it gives us permission as human beings to not be compassionate and to be judgmental. Whereas if we see God as loving and compassionate, as you see your higher power, and I think that's so beautiful, then you end up operating in your life with that same sentiment. And it really is true. So you can change the way that you think about your higher power, because anytime that you want to, essentially it's a choice. I did an interview yesterday with Dr. Ozzy Jankowicz, and she was saying how she just creates this choice in her life and she sticks with that choice. And essentially that is how you kind of move through difficult things, is making those choices of, I'm going to have a good day or I'm going to have a bad day. I'm going to see the missing tile or I'm going to see the whole picture. And every day we don't have to make that choice. We get to make that choice. And I feel privileged to be able to bring this message, but I want to just say that if it's hard and you're not doing it the way you feel you can do it, because it's just a difficult day and you're going through something really tough, it's okay also. Like, the judgment that we have for ourselves that I'm not getting it right. And especially women, I'm not getting it right. Gosh, I really just messed up today, or I didn't do what I wanted to do, or I didn't handle this particular relationship well, whatever it is that our negative talk, likes to ramble with. Have compassion for yourself too, because it's easy to say, I'm going to be compassionate to others, but how do you have compassion for yourself when sometimes things are really challenging? I was talking to somebody yesterday and she was like, I'm just so tired. She's going through something really tough. She has a sick husband. She's like, I'm just so tired. I'm so tired. And I said, are you tired or are you frustrated? She goes, I'm frustrated and it makes me tired. I'm like, okay, that is good, because now you're actually paying attention to what you're feeling. Because to me, when I hear someone say I'm tired, it means that there's just too much going on. It's like all the little things are just shooting up and my nervous system is just overload and I need to sleep it off, right? But when you look at the thing that is really causing your entire nervous system to just go crazy, then all of a sudden you start to become more in tune with what it is that you need for yourself. Yeah. And then you become more in tune with what it is you need to ask from somebody else, and I learned this is not me. I learned this from the most wonderful therapist. You should have her on your show. She's incredible. Her name is Dr. Joan Rosenberg, and she wrote the book, 90 Seconds to a Life You Live. And I had the incredible privilege to interview her. And a lot of the interviews I've had in my podcast, the Nurture series, was things that I wanted to really compact everything in this book. Everything's going to be okay. How to nurture yourself during a storm. And it wasn't just my story. It really began with my story, but it really was also some of the beautiful lessons and the advice that I got from people way smarter than I could have ever been. And at the time that I met Joan, I was not in a good place at all. I did not know how to self-regulate. I was very tired. And that tired was me not being able to figure out what it was that I was feeling. And going on this journey with her was just eye-opening. And I just said to her, I'm like, there's this, years ago, I remember seeing on a Facebook page, I think there was this video where there was hundreds of people in a park and some guy just gets up and starts dancing, no music. And he looks like a crazy person. And then the second person, and after a while, a second person got up and started dancing. And that's when everybody started getting up and dancing. So I said to her, I'm going to be your second dance lead. I'm going to do everything I can to get your message out.
Why do you think they did that? After the first person got up and danced, why do you think the second person got up and danced?
Because I think what the second person did was give permission, right? And credibility.
They were given permission. They themselves gave themselves permission after watching the first person that it's okay for me to get up and dance because he's doing it or she's doing it. Right.
Right.
And
right.
I want to go back to something you said earlier, Hava, because you said about choosing choosing the day. It's a choice. And I was at a conference a couple of weeks ago. One of the speakers said, if you're not changing, you're choosing.
Yeah.
And I loved that. It's just very simple way of thinking about it. If you're not changing it, then you're choosing it. When someone complains about it, there's no substitute with having a bad day or being frustrated. There are things that are going to happen in our lives and you might not choose it at the time that something's happening in your life. You're not choosing it, but I'll tell you what, you can sure choose how you feel about it. You can sure choose how you react to it. You can sure choose how you move past it or through it.
Yeah.
We get to choose that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We just went through this huge ordeal as a humankind with this massive illness.
The pandemic. Yeah.
Pandemic. And at the time,
it was more than that though, Hava, right? Don't you think it was more than just the pandemic? It was isolation. It was fear and fight and flight and all kinds of so much.
Yeah. social reorganization,
Yeah.
political reorganization, educational reorganization. I mean, just everything took a hit, financial loss, an enormous percentage. There's been so many challenges that all happened at once. We can deal with, they say, like the most difficult thing in life is death, divorce, and moving. Now, if you do all those three things at once, you just have a meltdown. And that's what we've all been through. We've been through a meltdown. So we're all trying to figure out really great tools and ways to recalibrate ourselves. At the time that COVID occurred, actually, we were doing pretty good as a family. Everybody was like doing good. We were staying home. We were doing our thing. My husband is the rabbi of a congregation in Los Angeles for young professionals. We service around 700 young professionals, and our community is beautiful. But all of a sudden, our social butterfly community is now sitting at home. And for a lot of our young professionals, they're single and they live alone, or they're newlyweds. And this was not how they planned on living their life, or they're young couples and they have a lot of little children and they don't know how to cope with being full-time, mom and also full-time worker all in one space all day long. We live in LA. A lot of our young couples are living in small apartments. So that was really, really challenging for a lot of people. And my husband and I, that's kind of where the Nurture series was born, because we wanted to give our couples, especially who were really not participating in any of our online engagement, an opportunity to just have dinner delivered. So we sent them dinner, we invited them to a date night. And then I interviewed different therapists on how to nurture your relationships, how to nurture yourselves. And everything was going swimmingly, or at least we thought it was, until June 16th. Of 2021, when finally everything was open and COVID seemed like it was starting to get to a little place of management. And even Las Vegas, people were showing up. Yes, masks, but I think on June 16th, they even said you don't have to wear masks. Still, people did because they were terrified. And my husband and I were in Las Vegas, and we went for my niece's wedding. My husband was going to officiate. And on the morning of the wedding, he woke up with 105 fever. I knew it wasn't COVID because we had taken a COVID test the night before because he wasn't feeling so good. So I called a paramedic and I immediately rushed him to the hospital. In a post-COVID world, the worst place to be in Las Vegas is a hospital, a ER off the strip of Las Vegas. You do not want to be there. Mm-hmm. There was literally like hundreds of patients and one nurse to like 15 or 20 patients. It was packed. It was ridiculous. And he was basically, his organs were shutting down. He was septic and they couldn't figure out why. And basically they said, we're going to give you a room, but you're going to have to wait. And they made us sit in an ER for 22 hours. And during that period of time, they weren't treating him for the first 10. Now I knew that a septic patient has exactly 48 hours before they basically cannot be brought back to life. And we are hitting our 36th hour. And in that moment, I just went to the nurse and I said, listen, I've been a patient advocate for many people in my family. My father was a doctor. I know hospital policy is strict. Put me to work. Whatever you need me to do, just put an IV in my husband. And she looked at me like I landed from the moon. But I took off my mask to show her how serious I was, because there was something about no one was taking me seriously because they couldn't see my face.
Yeah.
So finally I was like, F this. And I just took off my mask and I had everybody see what my intention was. And I started helping her with the patients. So I was helping my husband, of course, get through the night, and then just helping her so that she was plugging him into an IV. And that probably saved his life. I mean, I know that it did. What occurred from that was another 9 months of healing. He had to be on 24/7 IV, and he ended up having a massive heart infection that came out of nowhere and ended up having led with open heart surgery. And there were moments during that time where I thought, not only does this suck so badly, but I don't know what the outcome is going to be. And if I can't see outcome, then I can't control now. And if I can't control now, then I feel crazy. Right. And I think that's what a lot of people have gone through, like over the course of the last few years. And the thing that I kept coming back to was, okay, I can't control any of the circumstances around me, but I can control myself. So what can I do in this moment? The only thing I could do in this moment was breathe, because I knew that breathing could get me to a place of relaxation in some place so that I could tackle the next minute. And that to me was the real lesson for getting through a crisis. And I have been through many crises in my life. This one was different for me in many different ways, and for our family and for my husband, of course. And my husband and I talked a lot about, just breathing, getting through it through our breath, trying to just stay in the moment as best as we could. Mm-hmm. I think that there were days that we did not get it right. Probably more days we did not get it right than days we did get it right. And I think those were the days we needed a lot more self-compassion.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's such a great message to send, because that's what emotional resiliency is. It is to recognize that you can't control anybody outside of you. So how are you going to react to this situation? And we have complete control over our emotions, what we say, what we do, how we react. And by the way, that's what everyone remembers anyway. It's not really what happened to you or that happened around you. It's really how you got through that. And that story is what you're still telling today when you were faced with what your husband was going through. And it was your resiliency through the process. So what are some tips in the workshops that you give that we can leave our listeners with today? Breathing was one of them, you said, right? Getting back to a place of calm.
Yes, breathing is at the cornerstone of it. And the reason why breathing is so important and breath work is so important is because have you ever hugged somebody while they were in fear, like in fear mode?
Yeah. Yeah. They're just and
they're like holding their breath, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So
when they're panicked,
you're panicking, you're holding your breath. It's like, the other day I arrived at somebody's house because she was having a massive panic attack, and the ambulance, the paramedics were there. And I kept hearing the paramedics say over and over to her, breathe, you have to breathe. And it seems like the smallest thing to tell somebody, but because we all do it automatically. But the problem is that because we're so automatic with the way we breathe, we're also automatic with other things, like the way we feel and checking in with what it is that we feel. So we don't know, because we're not asking ourselves, we're not being conscious about it. We're just being robotic. So part of getting resilient is being very, very clear in asking yourself, what do I feel? And putting your hand on your heart and taking a deep breath. What am I feeling? And Joan Rosenberg talks about 8 uncomfortable feelings that she writes and highlights in her book. The reason why she wrote her book with the title 90 Seconds to a Life You Love is she says that an uncomfortable feeling only lasts for 90 seconds. Mm-hmm. Then after 90 seconds, it passes. So you can weather anything in 90 seconds. That's her message. Highly recommend you guys reading her book.
Thank you.
And so you take a deep breath, and now I like to take it to the next level and ask myself, what are those 8? Go through the 8 different uncomfortable feelings: anger, helplessness, vulnerability, frustration,
guilt,
sadness,
shame.
Mm-hmm. Funny thing is, shame and embarrassment is definitely both. Yeah. Guilt is not. Guilt.
Oh.
Guilt is something very interesting. Guilt is the punishment that we use on ourselves when we're feeling shame. But guilt is not a comfortable feeling. It is not an emotion. It is a punishment that we create. So shame and embarrassment are absolutely part of it. And so I kind of like do like a body check. And I have these little Post-it notes around my house with these 8 that I look around so that I'm constantly reminding myself to check, what am I feeling right now? Because we all fluctuate through these different emotions. And then after you've discovered what you're feeling, then the second part is discover where in the body are you feeling it? Where are you feeling it? And you can usually hone in on one spot in the body that is holding one of those emotions. And when you hone in on it and you breathe through it, it is the best way to just recalibrate yourself.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Those are really great tips. Thank you so much for sharing those with the listeners. And I know they're like, she's amazing. How do I find her book, right? How do I get more of Chava? Where do they go? Where do you want them to go to connect with you?
So I have a few events coming up. One is here in Los Angeles at the Grove, which is a really big, beautiful mall in the heart of the city. At Barnes & Noble, I'll be doing a book signing on June 13th at 7 p.m. Nice. I'm also going to be, you can get my book at barnesandnoble.com. Amazon has it, and all the big affiliates have it. Any bookstore, really, you can order it from. And we just made #1 new release. So that was really exciting. And
congratulations. And it's called Everything is Going to Be Okay.
Everything's going to be okay. How to nurture yourself during a storm. Yes.
Okay. How do you nurture yourself during the storm? And we have links for your website as well. So if they go to your website, will they see the links for your dates on when you're going to do the book signings?
Yes. Okay. My website is chavaflorin.com, and I'll have links for, you can go to the I don't have the book signing up yet, but I'll have it up by the end of today. Okay. And you'll be able to also have, links to all the different meditation workshops that I give, the classes that I give. I do one-on-one programs as well called the Expanse Effect, which is a 6-week course that I designed to teach this exact thing over the course of 6 weeks. It's really a lot of work. Like, you're going to be doing journaling, writing, all different kinds of exercises, meditation, breathing, guided meditations, and you really start to understand and learn how your body works and how your discomfort works. Basically, and it's funny. The one thing I will say is I worked with somebody yesterday, and we went through all the different uncomfortable feelings. And then the one uncomfortable feeling that he really didn't want to talk about was the uncomfortable feeling that was causing everything. So if you are really not wanting to think about one of those emotions, it's usually an indication that that's the thing you have to lead with, which is really uncomfortable.
1000%. But we all have to do the work, right? If you're choosing and you're not changing, you're choosing that. So if you're not happy with something going on in your life, or you want to continue your personal development journey and uncover, like we talked about in the very, very beginning, go back to the beginning of the podcast when we talked about how that child, those thoughts of that child you're allowing them to drive. And we need to change that narrative as an adult. So uncovering this and understanding why we have those emotions are very important. So Chava, thank you for being with us today. This was a wonderful interview. Fabulous. And I want all of you to remember, you're the only you that's ever been, right? You're the only you that's ever going to be. This is your chance, your one chance on earth to be emotionally resilient, so that you can be able to get through any turbulent time. If you think the pandemic is the only turbulent time you're ever, I've already lived through so many of them. That was just one of them. And that was a pretty bad one, but I'm sure there's going to be more. So working on ourselves are really what's going to help our relationships, who we are as a person, how we care about other people, how successful our business is. All of those things stem directly from you. So this was an absolutely incredible episode 100 to be talking about emotional resiliency. So thank you, Chava, for being here today. Thank you for being a guest on our show. I'm so thankful that we were introduced. And to all of you, remember, be you and be strong, right? That's what we can do. All right, until next time, bye-bye for now.
We hope you enjoyed our show today, as our guests shared their secrets on designing their life by taking the necessary leaps to expand their influence and attract the right people and clients into their lives. To start these easy steps for yourself, be sure to visit www.colleenbiggs.net. turbulent.com/freebies to download the 7 ways to increase your exposure today.